The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery. But the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com. Hello everyone, and welcome into the Rochester Press Box here on location from the mighty Genesee Brewhouse. I'm Bill Pucko, happy to be with you, and happy to be joined by Nate Rowan from the Rochester Red Wings front office.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
Welcome
Feels like
back.
baseball season.
Mike Catalana, we missed it last week. Congratulations on your 30th anniversary sportscasting at Channel 13. Very cool.
Yeah, thank you. It was it's been interesting. You know the way it is. I come here, I figure I'll be here a couple of years, and instead it's been 3 decades. So thank you very much.
Story left.
You're very excited about that, aren't you?
Well, no, I'm happy for you, man.
Oh, don't do that to me.
What we call in the media is peaking early.
Tell us about the jersey you're wearing today, Duff.
Continuing our quarterbacks after Kelly, 2 weeks to go with the Bills season. This is, I think I'm the only person that owns this, I'm not kidding, Tyrod Taylor Pro Bowl jersey from 2 years ago when everybody dropped out and Tyrod got to go to the Pro Bowl.
Does this make it exceedingly valuable as a result?
It's actually autographed by him, and I think that brings the value down. Wow, that's over the line?
Yeah, that's over the line. We love to talk baseball with you, Nate. A lot happened this week, starting with the Yankees and what they did to the Marlins. What's your take on that?
Well, I think what's difficult to grasp is if you can count on one hand the number of teams that could do what the Yankees did in terms of taking on the amount of money that was owed to Stanton. And so, in that regard, last year I think the Yankees had this reputation as a bunch of young baby boomers, and they're very likable guys, and now they're kind of growing back to the evil empire days where they just outspend everybody and buy their championships. I think that's what happened here. They basically bought Stanton from the Marlins, and it's difficult to understand, I think, because there's only a select number of teams that would have been able to pull off exactly what the Yankees did to acquire Stanton.
Me, I would love to buy in a conspiracy theory and the whole Jeter. They're talking about he's going to get a World Series ring if the Yankees win it this year, and all the rest of that. But he had deals worked out in the National League that fell through, and it was this whole no-trade clause that really got him.
Well, Stanton had control there, right? I mean, you think for the Marlins, a better deal would be to deal him to some team that's going to give you a bunch of inexpensive prospects. But he didn't want to go to most of those teams. He had sort of set where he was, and he sort of said to them, this is where I want to go. And look, Jeter is stripping that thing down. And he deserves criticism in one way because he's been basically cutthroat, knocking people out. But let's also look at it. What was something great going on down there? Now, they lost to one great marquee guy, but it's a lousy team, a bad franchise at the moment. They don't have the money. They've done this before. It just is different because it's Jeter this time tearing it down. And he's not tearing down a World Series team. Yeah. He's tearing down a team that had one marquee guy.
He had such a pristine existence, Duffy, and I'm wondering if, he'll never admit it, but if deep down all this criticism about his new job doesn't hurt him.
No, it has to hurt him because, again, he never was ever criticized. Like, the only thing that ever touched him was, he gives gift baskets to women that he may have slept with. But I've been reading a lot of Miami stuff down there. Miami is upset with Derek Jeter because they just spent a bunch of money on this brand new baseball stadium, and part of the negotiation for the stadium was Loria, the guy who owned the Marlins, sold him to Jeter and his team, was we're not going to put out a terrible product. We're going to give you actual baseball. And 3 years after the stadium opens with taxpayer money, well, you're back to bottom-feeding baseball that nobody wants to go see. Yeah. Jeter ain't putting a uniform on. Right. He walked in there, and listen, you can say all you want about no trade clauses and all this stuff. You can't tell me that there wasn't that Yankees connection that pulled Jeter to take back what he got for what he gave. All right?
But he had deals worked out that he wasn't responsible for having them fall through.
Well, you didn't have to do it today. You didn't have to do it this week. You could have waited. What are you waiting for? I mean, what do you have to do it now? Why?
I don't know. The deal was on the table, but you talk about reputations. Does anybody even remember or realize that Michael Jordan is an executive and an owner now? Right? He's been awful, right, in Charlotte. He hasn't done anything. It's really had no impact at all on his legacy. Nobody even thinks of him as that.
Charlotte, Miami, very different.
Yeah, I guess.
Last thing quickly, does this make the Yankees better than Houston entering the baseball season, as is?
I would say yes, but I don't think that either team are done making moves. I think the Yankees have to get more pitching. I think it's given that in the postseason, with the exception of one, maybe two of those World Series games, it came down to starting pitching. That was the difference. The Yankees bullpen is certainly good enough. They need to acquire at least one starting pitcher that can help them kind of push them over the edge.
This is the Rochester Press Box, presented by the Genesee Brew House. We talk Buffalo Bills next. The Press Box, brought to you in part by Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys. Call 262-COMP, C-O-M-P, today. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box from the Genesee Brew House, and this portion brought to you by Connors and Ferris. We're talking Buffalo Bills. Mike, we had to invent the point spread this time because as we record this midweek, nobody had a line on this game, due primarily to the Bills' quarterback situation, which I think we all believe Tyrod Taylor's going to start.
Right.
So we call it even.
Yeah, it would be somewhere around. It's just like last week. Honestly, with the way the Bills are offensively, Tyrod doesn't move the line all that much. They went with Peterman. I think last week they ended up being 3-point favorites. And by the way, covered when LaShawn McCoy ran into the end zone in overtime. I think they're going to have their hands full in this game. And in this case, I think they're going to need to score a little bit more. Look, Jay Cutler played the greatest game we've seen him certainly play in a Dolphins uniform. One of the best games he's played in the NFL because normally he doesn't look that accurate and that engaged in a game. But it's a different mindset for that Miami team. They're coming up to Buffalo where they never like to play. They're coming up in the cold and coming off that big win. I think that helps the Bills a little bit. Yeah. The Dolphins can say they're still, in the hunt, right, for the playoffs. I don't think they're going to end up making it. I think Tyrod's going to actually play pretty well. I think he's going to be on the field. I think he's going to play pretty well. I think they'll get enough. And somehow this team is going to end up 8-6. I think they win it on a late field goal.
What do you think?
I'm not worried about the Dolphins at all. I mean, you have the greatest win of the season against Miami. You're coming on a short week on the road. Mike mentioned the weather. Jay Cutler is feast or famine Jay Cutler. He never strings together two quality games. You would need a quality game from Cutler to win this thing. I'm not worried about the Dolphins at all. Bills cover easy. The only thing that can prevent the Bills from running away with this game is their their head coach, Sean McDermott. I am so out on McDermott. It's not even funny. And I was so mad. I'm texting Mike after the game on Sunday.
Here's the thing. So we're talking about in the overtime when it's 4th down and 1 from the 44 of the Colts, and he punts the ball. Now, it's a strange circumstance here where what he did ended up working in the way he said he had it planned. He punted them deep. He got the ball back. They drove down and scored. He was so lucky to have that happen. It took Joe Webb throwing one up in the air to Deontay Thompson to make the catch. All those things had to happen. I am happy that in his response on Monday, he basically went as close as a coach is going to be to saying, I got lucky. And then he said circumstances could be different. It worked that time. He knows he needed to be more aggressive. It was not only bad, then he called timeout to add to it. So it cost him a timeout. And they couldn't punt. He made a big mistake and got away with it. I hope he learns from it.
One of these days he's going to make a mistake that he can't get out scot-free on, and I'm afraid it's going to be this week, but I still have the Bills going.
How do you see it?
I got the Bills too. I think that the Dolphins, for the most part, they don't really have anything that really, not too much to get excited about. Cutler played about as well as he could have in that game on Monday night.
That Drake kid's
He
pretty
beat
good.
the Patriots for the first time in his career, Jay Cutler, on Monday night. I'll take the Dolphins before that, more so than I'll take in one game. The Patriots just didn't show up. It's one of those games right before this. I know that Belichick was upset when a reporter asked him about overlooking the Dolphins, but I mean, you're playing for the AFC next week against the Steelers. Win or lose that game on Monday. So I expect a big letdown from the Dolphins. I'll take the Bills.
All right, pick a second game.
I think Tampa Bay is really, really bad, and I know that they're hosting the Falcons, and so on Monday night I will take the Falcons -6.
What do you got, Mike?
I'm taking New England on the road at Pittsburgh, and it's mostly because they played so poorly. They do get Gronk back, and I don't trust Pittsburgh. I don't trust Mike Tomlin as a head coach. He's winning a ton. He has had great success. They have gotten so fortunate the last 3 weeks, and in a big game between those two. Look, I want to see Pittsburgh win the game. I don't think it's happening. I got New England in this.
All right, I'm going to take Miami because while I agree that, they can't play as well as they did against New England. They did that 2 weeks in a row. The Denver game kind of bothers me too. So I like Miami, and I like the Giants over your Eagles because they're a little extra, half a point. Giants are at home. They get 7.5 against Philly.
Since you going to Minnesota 10.5, it's like my grandpa always told me, double digits is free money. There's no way they don't cover 10.5. Since he's not as bad. Well, he was also a degenerate gambler.
Oh, okay.
It's a long story.
The kind of person that we like to invoke here. Yeah. Connors and Ferris, the sponsor of this segment of the Rochester Press Box, will award the winner of our Pick the NFL contest a check of $500 to be donated to the Hunter's Hope Foundation. This portion of the Rochester Press Box, been brought to you by Connors and Ferris, like it or not, is next. Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box. We are at the Genesee Brew House. Like it or not, Nate, Michael Pineda is now a Minnesota Twin.
I like it. I think the deal is set up so that he's paid less money in this first year when he's recovering from Tommy John surgery that he had in July. I think it's a 2-year, $10 million contract. $2 million will be paid this year. $8 million will be paid in 2019. I think for the most part it's a low risk given the amount of money that's being thrown around to pitchers. I think it's
may not pitch at all.
It's a pretty good risk for the Twins in my opinion.
I hate the guy, former Yankee. Like it or not, Nick Foles.
You know what? All things considered, first of all, when it comes to the Eagles as well, they've been doing. I'm not laughing at the injury. I'm laughing at the circumstance. You'd be surprised how many Eagles fans there are in the greater Rochester area. I like Foles. For some reason, he did. Tell me if I'm wrong. Did he go 6-2 when he filled in for Mike Mick Vick that year?
Yeah.
Okay, and listen, he wasn't just running the clock out the other night against the Rams. The guy was throwing the ball, and he looked good throwing the ball. He's not Carson Wentz. That being said, he's a vet. He knows this offense. He has that veteran way of getting around and making things happen. I know the Eagles aren't in the spot that they were, but I think people are overestimating how much trouble the Eagles are in with Foles at QB.
I heard Todd Blackledge's name brought up by comparison.
As the type of player that he is?
That he got the Giants to the Super Bowl.
Jeff Hostetler.
I got those two mixed up all the time.
Hostetler, yeah.
So they were similar.
Okay, so you had Phil Simms as the quarterback. Phil Simms, an excellent quarterback in his career, but that was a run-based defensive team. And I remember being in the press room after the Bills beat the Raiders that day, looking up on the screen and watching the Giants beat the 49ers, that great 49ers team. I think it was 9-6 with all field goals. That was a different time and a different place and a defense that was off the charts. Eagles defense is good. They do have weapons, and they do have a good defense, and they can run the ball. All those things would help Foles. Obviously, with Wentz, they're a favorite now. I think it's really even.
Like it or not, games played in the conditions we saw the Bills play the Colts.
You know, it's
last
funny
week.
you say that because while it was fun and it was interesting and everybody got a kick out of it, I do wonder at the point where they say, this is not football. And I tried to compare it. I was thinking, what if it was just such torrential rain that it was just such a mud bath and you couldn't move? That was the most snow actually on the field I've ever seen for a game, any Bills game. And, you know, Kyle Williams was saying, yeah, it's great. You know, they mark the lines and they go in with the leaf blowers, but then they got a pile of snow this high that I'm trying to put my hand in and run. And even on the play when Nate Peterman got hurt, he's scrambling around just to get footing on the touchdown to win the game. The defensive back for the Colts couldn't move. It almost made it not a legitimate NFL game. The Bills survived, and it's good for them. Fun to watch, but after a while, since that was such an important game for the Bills, it would have been tough to lose that way.
Well, he's right. If Colts-Bills, nobody says anything. If that was the Patriots-Dolphins game, there would be stories all week long on when do we cancel NFL?
Absolutely right. This is the Rochester Press Box. We are at the Genesee Brewhouse. Unfinished Business is next.
The holidays are here, America. And if you've got Dunkin' Coffee, you've got it covered. Parties, presents, whatever the holidays bring. With 3 pounds of coffee for $19.99, there's nothing you can't handle. The holidays run on Dunkin'.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box from the mighty Genesee Brewhouse. Come on down and see the keg tree, a Rochester Christmas tradition. It's time for Unfinished Business, brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Duffy starts.
If you are a hockey fan like I am, it's a very exciting couple of weeks in Western New York. The World Junior Championships, IIHF, come to Buffalo, but they're also making a stop in Rochester before it starts. This coming week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, there will be international scrimmages happening at the Belgrade Regional Iceplex. Russia, Sweden, who's the third team? I'm blanking. It doesn't matter. It's going to be fantastic games. And on top of the Amerks and RIT in town up until the end of the year, you also have the actual tournament going on in Buffalo all day from 10 in the morning until 8 o'clock at night at the First Key Bank Center and the Harbor Center. The best hockey players in the next 10 years will be doing their thing. And the tickets are ridiculously inexpensive. And it's all capped off by Team USA Canada outside New Era Field. It's like on a Friday or something, but it doesn't matter. Take the day off. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to go. I've got some vacation time coming. I'm abandoning my family and I'm going to watch hockey all day for like 5 straight days.
On behalf of your family, thank you.
I think there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the Sabres in recent weeks. Robin Lehner's played much better in goal, which has been a big Achilles heel for them the last couple of years. The team seems to be fitting into Phil Housley's system a lot better. They have points as of this taping in 4 consecutive games. There's a lot of reasons to be excited, and Jack Eichel still hasn't broken out of his shell yet. We need to see more from Jack, but the Sabres are certainly trending in a way that makes you feel optimistic about the way the Sabres are trending.
Got a reason? I mean, can you put your finger on something that happened that made this team play better?
They're just playing better defensively. I think Phil Housley brought a defensive mindset. He was a defenseman in his career. In Nashville, he had a lot of success with getting defensemen active in the offense, and while we haven't seen that yet, systems take time for people to get used to in any single sport, and I think hockey especially. They're certainly not allowing as many goals, and they just seem to be they seem to be playing better as a unit. I think that's just they're grasping Phil Housley's system a little bit better.
I was at an event this week, and a person who I respect has been involved in youth football for a long time made mention of youth football and high school football, and then he said, it's not like the NFL and the guys in the NFL who forget where they come from and don't respect the game as much. And I thought to myself, I don't think that's true. And then I thought, well, no wonder a fan, especially someone who maybe has been turned off by the NFL, would feel this way. And I put the blame, where else would you think, right on Roger Goodell. And the reason I put it there with all of the money that he's gotten is because what I think he's done with this game, with his punishments and some of the rules, is turn the players into the bad guys all the time. Look, I'm not saying players are perfect, and I know a lot of you were upset with things with the national anthem, but there is constant news after every game about a player being suspended, about a player on PEDs, and there are so many different ways a player can test positive that in other sports they would not test positive. And all of the fines and all of the different ways a player playing the normal game can get in trouble. It is constantly beating up on your own players and your own product. Heck, they suspended Tom Brady and fought him in court for more than a year. Roger Goodell and the NFL have made the players look like bad guys. They're not angels, but most of the players are good people, hardworking, community-oriented, and that's not expressed enough. I'm not making excuses for everything. I'm saying that's an NFL problem. It's your product and your players, and you should do better.
Is that perception more significant, you think, in the semi-decline of the NFL than oversaturation?
Yeah, I think it works in both ways. I think people constantly now look at players as, that guy was suspended, this happened, that happened. Sort of going back to the baseball PED thing, but it's constant with NFL players. Even good players in the NFL who get fined for a hit, fined for whatever. There's constant negative news coming from the league about their own players, and I think it should stop.
Very good. Dunkin' Donuts has brought to you our Unfinished Business segment of the Rochester Press Box here at the Genesee Brew House. Nate, thanks once again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Good job, guys, co-hosting. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with the Rochester Press Box.